Good evening. This is Kiana, and today we are going to be discussing the headline that everyone is talking about, and that is the attempted assassination on former President Donald Trump. Now, there is a lot of stories that have made their way into cyberspace and a lot of political commentators and social media influencers that are giving their opinions on this specific situation. Even former President Donald Trump has weighed in and gave his opinions on why he feels like this, uh, action has taken place. And so I'm not going to really get into that. I want to approach this topic from a different perspective. And that perspective is using a theory in criminology. So when I attended Penn State University, this was before I was enrolled at University of Arizona online, attended Penn State University online. And I had a university professor who was very adamant about tying our thoughts and our opinions to a theory in criminology. And so that's what I'm going to be doing today. And I am going to be referencing some information from this book, State Criminality. It's by The Crime of All Crimes by Don L. Routh. And in Routh's book, State Criminality, there is a chapter that speaks on theories, and one is the differential association theory, right? And so, of course, this theory is that, in essence, that people learn crime, that crime isn't inherent, it's not trained. So you're not trained when you're in the womb, or it's not, you're not born a criminal. It's actually learned in the environment. And so when we're going through this story, the person that we're going to be speaking about, of course, was the perpetrator named uh, Ryan Wesley Routh, I believe. Yeah, Ryan Wesley Routh. And so you know that he is a 58-year-old Floridian who actually uh, disliked Trump, didn't like him at all, and had a lot of choice words uh, to say about Trump. And he was pro war, and not only was he pro war, but he took active steps to support the conflict in Ukraine. And so we're going to be actually analyzing to try and evaluate and not necessarily understand, but just make sense from, maybe the perspective in crime, to try and understand it from, you know, using criminology, why this person may have or may have committed the act that they did. So again, first, Sutherland argues that crime is not, criminal behavior is learned. So basically, people are learning criminal behavior in their environment. And we may ask ourselves, like, where did Ralph learn to this criminal act, this desire to, uh, take the president's life? And one could argue that maybe in the past, he watched maybe some videos or some news stories about uh, the last incident, or maybe he was watching several stories or movies about assassinations, and that is likely what led to this specific act. So, second, Sutherland argues that criminal behavior is learned in the interaction with other persons in the process of communication. Communication is verbal. but not always, right? So this attempted assassination was in communication, likely with other people. So obviously, this seemed like a very planned incident, right? It appeared to be planned. Um, so there was planning beforehand, and then there was an act afterwards. And one could, it raises the question, like, who did this person communicate with? Like, who were they in contact with? Like, did they do this alone? And were they in communication with somebody that actually, um, hyped them up to commit this criminal act? Is uh, a good question, and it's one that is very rational. Did someone persuade Ruth? Did someone not only persuade him, but was he manipulated? These are all questions that come to the forefront. Third, uh, so Sutherland argues that the principal part of learning criminal behavior occurs within intimate personal groups. Okay, so what does that mean? So sometimes when there is a criminal behavior that is about to occur, and these are people that are close, right? So according to Sutherland, and just analyzing the situation, maybe this was a maybe Ruth was in contact with other people that had a disdain or a dislike for Trump, and uh, you know this rhetoric got out of control, and was so persistent and continuous within a circle of persons that quite likely, like, that caused him to take action. And what I mean by that is that maybe he was in a group of people who uh, you know constantly talked negatively, uh, but not only negatively but dangerously, like using uh, dangerous rhetoric about Trump, and maybe that is what led to this specific situation. And so Sutherland further argues that the specific direction of motives and drives is learned from definitions of legal codes as favorable and unfavorable. So this is, of course, in a different context, and uh, I, I really don't think that this is. I can't see how this may apply to this particular situation. Maybe he was able to maybe he ruminated, right, in his mind that if he a couple of things could have happened, right? So maybe he said, well, if he gets caught, then the time is something that he can bear to do in jail. That's a possibility. And then there is another possibility that he felt that if he got caught doing this, that he wouldn't survive it, and that was probably okay for Ruth. So in the context of, like, legal codes, and whether that's favorable or unfavorable, I think that in essence things seem to be favorable for him because he went ahead and committed the crime. Let's see. And so Sutherland further argues that when people become criminals, they do not do so because of contact with criminal patterns, but also because of isolation from anti-criminal patterns. So what does that mean? So this man probably got used to carrying a firearm in the United States and being able to take it where he wanted to go, because you know that in Florida those laws are very lax, and so being able to take it where probably wherever he went, this is the anti-criminal pattern, right? So you're not uh, being stopped for having a firearm, and maybe if he was stopped, maybe they would let him go or something. It looks like that there wasn't a lot of accountability, and so sometimes when people, it appears, building on Sutherland's theory, when people are committing crimes such as what we see in the news lately, when it comes to this attempt on a person's life, people are weighing the laws, whether there is laws in place that will allow them to do it, and whether there aren't laws in place that allow them to do it. Further, so Sutherland says that when we're thinking about differential association, they may vary in frequency, duration, priority, and intensity. And so, because of this varying, uh, you know, the information that's here, it's difficult to really determine, from, I think, a quantitative point, uh, you know, how much is this going to happen? How likely it is that this is going to happen? How long this is going to happen? Um, you know, uh, why is this important for it to happen? How intense this is going to be? Because again, in the United States, we haven't had a lot of attempts on our presidents. Yes, we have had that throughout history, but it hasn't been like an ongoing thing. It hasn't been like, um, this isn't what the United States is known for, is that we're not known for attempts on our presidents. So, it's difficult to say like how frequent this is going to happen, the intensity of when it happens, duration, like, okay, is this going to be happening every day, every month? This is going to be, you know, the frequency of when it's happening. Next, so one thing that I found interesting is that Sutherland argues that uh, when we're thinking about the process of learning criminal behavior, in this case, um, with Ralph, that patterns involve all the mechanisms that are involved in any other learning. But negatively, this means that the learning of criminal behavior is not restricted to the process of imitation. So remember earlier I said, well, maybe there was the possibility that Ralph imitated the perpetrator before that was gunned down at the Trump rally. Maybe this was an imitation of that. But according to Sutherland, that's not always the case. Um, Sutherland argues that a person who is seduced, for instance, who learns criminal behavior by association, uh, but this would not necessarily be described as imitation. So I have a theory. I think that this person may have felt that, and this is just my perspective, and anyone is open to disagree with it, but I think this person wanted to prove that he was, um, a excellent fighter, right? Or he was a person that can be counted on in war. And so if we look at a lot of the stories that have come out about this person, there is some reports that he, you know, wanted to lead a group of people and, lead a group of people in the Ukraine war. Not only did he want to do that, but he also wanted to um, bring people over from different countries and do so illegally, um, but to bring them over from different countries to fight in the war in Ukraine. And so, again, that is not done through imitation because, of course, the last perpetrator didn't do that. So maybe this person was seduced by the idea of being a hero, maybe being at the forefront of defeating Russia. Maybe that's was what he wanted in the end. Maybe he wanted to be recognized as a person who helped Ukraine and a person who helped defeat Russia, or maybe not only to defeat Russia, but a person who defeated Trump. And so maybe he took this extreme step and engaged in this extreme act to maybe gain notoriety or influence. And of course, look, we're all talking about him now. So he is going to go down as the person who tried to, take out former President Donald Trump. And again, people are often seduced by popularity. People are seduced by, um, being the anti-hero. People are seduced by being, um, someone who is popular, or uh, in, in essence, people are seduced by celebrity. And so, could Routh have done this for celebrity is a good question. Or was it always within his heart to really help Ukraine? Was it like really uh, within his soul and within the fabric of his being to really help Ukraine? Like, we don't know. Like, did he do this for uh, democracy? Did he do this for selfish gain? It's difficult to understand, isn't it? What seduced him to do this, and like why? These are always questions that's important to answer in circumstances like this. Let's see. So further, Sutherland argues that criminal behavior is an expression of general needs and values. It's not explained by those general needs and values, since non-criminal behavior is an expression of the same needs and values. So what was his needs and what was his value? So from the articles that I read, and again, this is just analyzing the information out there, but that's not necessarily going to be the case because only Routh can tell us his intent, his motive. He is alive to do that. And so I'm pretty sure we'll be hearing that, uh, you know, as time progresses. But what were his needs? Like, he seemed to be connected to the Ukrainian war. And was that because did he have a family member in Ukraine? Did he have a friend in Ukraine? Like, was it because he was connected to Ukraine because of the United States' allegiance with Ukraine? Um, what were his values? Like, a lot of people argue that Trump is anti-democratic and that Trump is, you know, uh, cutting back a lot of rights. And of course, we have seen that happen. And so, was that a motive? Because he felt that doing this would restore democracy. These are all valid questions to raise and to really try and understand what's going on in this particular situation. And so, lastly, Sutherland argues that uh, attempts to explain criminal behavior in general drives and values such as money motives, right? But so say for instance, money was a motive to this situation. Maybe, and that is where we're getting a lot of information that there is foreign influence in U.S. elections, and we're getting a lot of information that people could be influenced and being paid by foreign entities. And so that is another question, like, was this a financial situation? Did someone pay Routh to do this attempt on former President Donald Trump? Like, was he paid? Uh, was he influenced by receiving money? Is a question. Because again, we have a lot of politicians in the United States that have argued that there is meddling in our elections, and that there is a possibility that foreign nations are upset with Trump, and that foreign nations are seeking to retaliate against Trump. And so the question is, are foreign nations influencing American citizens to engage in these really dangerous acts? Is an important question that should be raised, because we understand, and this is an important thing to really understand. I don't think that a foreign nation or even the U.S. is going to hire an expert to engage in this kind of act. So, because it would make it so obvious, right? It would be very obvious that this person had expertise. This person had um, and usually with expertise, there is a connection. So if this person was an expert marksman, then that expertise is connected to something, right? And then that, whatever that something is connected to something else. And so that leaves a trail. But if foreign entities get citizens that are really inexperienced, then if that person gets caught, or if that person is unalived during the process, then there is no trail leading back to that foreign entity, or whoever that entity is that uh, influence that person to engage in that illegal conduct. And so that's one way to look at it. Again, that's Sutherland's differential association theory. When I'm doing these videos, I'm learning just as you are learning. And again, I studied this theory in university, but again, it's always good to go back and review these theories, and I'm learning them and sharing them with you so that we can think critically about the information that is around us. And that is the whole purpose of this video. But please keep in mind that this video is not in support of any foreign entity, nor is it in support of Donald Trump. It's not going against Donald Trump. This is just an academic video to kind of review the information that's out there very briefly, and to understand or maybe analyze the perpetrator's behavior. So I'm Kiana Canada. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel at Real Kiana Canada. That's at Real Kiana Canada. You can also follow me on Twitter at Kiana_Canada, Kiana_Canada. My Facebook is actually linked to my YouTube account, so you can follow me there. And hope to talk to you soon. Bye-bye.